The potato chip is one of those things you feel like has always been around. It's just slices of potato, right? Well, like many things that Americans are curious about, it's just not that simple. You see, the French fry used to be all the rage, but the potato chip was non-existent. That is, until it became an accidental obsession almost overnight.
1.5 billion pounds every single year. That's not a snack, that's an obsession. And it all started with one very annoyed chef, one particularly picky customer, and one very petty decision that changed American food forever. It's the summer of 1853, Saratoga Springs, New York, one of the most fashionable resort destinations in the entire country. The wealthy elite have come here to take to the mineral waters, gamble at the track, and dine at the finest tables money can buy. Moon's Lake House sits right on the edge of the lake, and its kitchen is run by a man named George Crum. Crum was extraordinary, the son of a black jockey and an Abenaki Native American mother. He had grown up hunting, fishing, and cooking in the Adirondacks before finding his way into the restaurant world. George Crum had built a reputation serious enough to command one of the most coveted kitchens in New York State. That was no small accomplishment, even for a man of uncommon skill. On the menu at Moon's Lake House, French fried potatoes. Thick cut, soft in the center, lightly golden. The refined European style that well-traveled diners expected.
Crum knew the popular dish well. After all, he had made it hundreds, if not thousands of times.
But on this particular afternoon, one guest at one particular table had a problem with them. The plate came back. Too thick, the guest complained. Too soggy. Start over. Crum sent out another plate. It too came back. Now, as legend goes, the offending diner was railroad tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt. Or it could have simply been some unknown wealthy regular whose name history never bothered to record. We may never know for certain. The accounts vary, but what the accounts agree on is this. Whoever this man was, he pushed George Crum's patience right to its absolute limit. In a flash of pure, unfiltered frustration, Crum grabbed his knife and sliced the potatoes as thin as paper. He dropped them into boiling oil until they were rigid and brittle. And then, in what can only be described as a masterclass in passive aggression, he buried them in salt. He was done with this customer, who would surely complain about his overcooked concoction. The plate went out, and then something happened that George Crum almost certainly did not expect. The customer didn't just accept them, he loved them. He ordered more. Nearby tables started asking what they were. Within weeks, Moon's Lake House was serving what guests had started calling Saratoga Chips. They became the restaurant's most requested dish, born of spite and perfected by aggravation. George Crum later opened up his own restaurant on the shores of Saratoga Lake, where every table received a basket of his chips the moment guests sat down. They were soon famous throughout the region, and the story of the potato chip, well, it's only just beginning. Because getting a chip invented in an upstate New York kitchen, then recreated in other restaurant settings is one thing. Getting it into the hands of every American in every corner of this nation, well, that's a completely different battle. Stick with us, because the real revolution in potato chips didn't happen in a restaurant kitchen, it happened in a garage in California, and it changed the snack industry forever. By the early 1900s, the Saratoga chip had gone from a single restaurant's specialty to a genuine phenomenon along the eastern seaboard. Street vendors sold them by the pound out of open barrels and tins. Confectionery shops stocked them. Some hotels made their own house versions. George Crum's accidental invention had clearly struck something deep in the American appetite. But there was a fundamental, stubborn, unromantic problem standing between the potato chip and true national greatness. Potatoes are regional. They always have been. Different soils, different climates, different varieties. Russets from Idaho, Kennebecks from Maine, Cobblers from the Carolinas. each one frying differently, tasting differently, and behaving differently in the pan. A chip made in Pennsylvania tasted nothing like one made in Georgia or California because they were working with entirely different raw materials. And nobody shipped finished chips very far because finished chips didn't survive the journey. Without a sealed package, chips absorbed moisture from the air within hours. They went limp. They went rancid. The fat in the potato oxidized and turned the flavor stale and vaguely unpleasant. The chip was a local food, sometimes a very good local food, but a local food nonetheless. Enter Laura Scudder. Laura Scudder was not a chef. She was a businesswoman, sharp, practical, and deeply impatient with problems that had obvious solutions no one had bothered to act on. She ran a small but ambitious snack food operation out of Monterey Park, California, and she understood something that the barrel and tin vendors had never fully reckoned with. The enemy of the potato chip was not competition, it was air. Scudder's solution was elegant in its simplicity. She had her workers take sheets of wax paper, fold it into bags, and seal the edges with a warm iron. They did it by hand at home in her garage the night before production. The chips went into these sealed bags while still warm. The bags were dated. That date wasn't just practical information. It was a promise. It was arguably one of the first freshness dates ever placed on a commercially sold food product in America. Scudder wasn't just solving a packaging problem. She was inventing a new kind of customer trust. The wax bag didn't just keep chips fresh, it made chips portable. It made them shippable. It made them a product you could put on a shelf in a store 3 counties away and have a customer pick up with reasonable confidence that it wouldn't taste like cardboard. The regional chip companies that had been operating as small, local operations suddenly had a model for thinking bigger. Chip makers in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in the South, all began adopting and adapting the sealed bag approach. And as road networks expanded and trucks replaced horses, something like a national snack industry began, slowly, to take shape. But slowly is the key word, because even with better packaging, the potato chip still had a fragility problem that no wax bag could fully solve. Chips broke. Chips crumbled. Stack them wrong, jostle the truck, let the crate shift in transit, and what arrived at the store was a bag half full of crumbs and dust. But somewhere in a company's research lab, an engineer looked at that problem and asked a question that would upend the entire snack food world. What if the chip somehow fit the packaging? By the late 1960s, Procter & Gamble, a company best known for soap and shampoo, had decided to enter the snack food business. Their approach was to solve every single problem the chip had ever had, from the ground up. Their lead researcher, Frederick Bauer, a chemist and food storage expert, approached the potato chip the way an engineer approaches a design flaw. The chip broke in transit. The chip went stale. The chip was irregular, unpredictable, impossible to stack. So the solution must be to redesign the chip itself. Bauer's team started not with a whole potato, but with dehydrated potato flakes, combined with flour, water, and a small number of additional ingredients, pressed into an identical curved shape called a hyperbolic paraboloid. Every single chip was the same, stackable, nestable, protected by a purpose-built canister, similar to what tennis balls came in. It took years, but Pringles finally launched nationally in 1975 and immediately ran into a wall. The established chip companies, like Lay's and other regional brands, went to the FDA and argued that Pringles should not even be allowed to be called potato chips. And they had a point, legally speaking. The product was made from processed potato flour, not sliced potatoes. The FDA eventually ruled that Pringles had to label themselves as potato chips made from dried potatoes. It was genuinely a significant regulatory fight, and it shows how threatened the industry was by the saddle-shaped snack.
The Pringles controversy cut right to the heart of something Americans actually care about, even if they can't articulate it, and that is authenticity.
There was something about a real sliced potato, irregular, honest, slightly different every time, that a pressed, uniform, lab-engineered chip just could not replicate. And consumers knew it, shaking their heads even while they reached for that newfangled canister. But here's the flip side of the story. Pringles didn't kill the regional chip. In many ways, the controversy reinvigorated it. The 1980s and 90s saw a wave of regional chip loyalty. Cape Cod chips in Massachusetts, Zapp's in New Orleans, Utz in Pennsylvania, Tim's Cascade in the Pacific Northwest. Each brand celebrating local potato varieties, regional flavors, the particular terroir of their home ground, the very thing that had once been a limitation, that chips tasted different everywhere because potatoes grew differently everywhere, became a selling point, a badge of identity, a reason to be proud. And George Crum, that brilliant, quietly revolutionary chef who started all of this in a moment of pure frustrated pettiness in 1853, well, his legacy lived on in every single one of them. He didn't set out to change American food. He set out to make one picky diner regret ever sitting down at his table. The potato chip is not just a snack. It is a 200-year argument about authenticity, ingenuity, and the particular American genius for turning an accident into an institution. Well, if this story made you crunch a little differently today, we'd love to know. Drop us a comment below. If you're new here, welcome to American Curiosity. Hit that subscribe button and join us every week as we pull back the curtain on the everyday things that turn out to have extraordinary stories behind them.